John chapter 7, verse 2. The Jewish festival of shelters was near. And that's the whole verse. It's the setting, it's the backdrop for what we're about to see now in the next discussion that's going to transpire between, in this case now, Jesus' family, his physical, earthly family. And why is it so significant? Is it just a time? So this normally occurs. You might read this in some translations as the Feast of Booths or the Feast or Festival of Tabernacles. It's a celebration. It's a 7-day long celebration. It's a season kind of in the fall, maybe October, September, after the harvest, when the people would live in tents to remember the time of their wandering in the wilderness, or a tabernacle. When God was the provider, he provided all the provisions. He was with them, and they were dwelling in a tent, and God was dwelling in a tabernacle among them, and they were kind of a nomadic, traveling people wandering in the wilderness, guided by God with a pillar of smoke and a pillar of fire. And people still do this. The Jewish people will still do this. They'll go take all this stuff out, and they'll live in kind of these walled tents, and just to commemorate this festival, this time, this season when God was the great provider and God was with his people. So it's an interesting backdrop as people are now going to reject God who's walking among them, who's tabernacling, which is what we saw in John chapter 1, that he dwelt or tabernacled or sheltered, if you want to use that translation, among the people. So here's the living God walking among his people, and they're going to end up rejecting him. So just the contrast between the thing that they're celebrating and the thing that's happening in reality that they're missing. They're going to go live in shelters and tabernacle when they don't realize that the Word of God is tabernacling among them. And so verse 2 is giving us the backdrop for what is to come.